Welcome to Expat Hoops, the show where we interview basketball players who have played their pro careers overseas. Today, we interview another member of the George Mason men's 2006 Final Four team, Gabe Norwood. Gabe has spent his pro career in the Philippines, where he played the majority of his career for the Rain or Shine Elasto Painters. He is entering his 14th season in the Philippines. Gabe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. I'm happy to be here. I know it took a while scheduling, but I'm happy we got it worked out.
Oh, that's okay.
We're happy to be able to finally sit down with you, and want to thank you first of all for coming on, but not only being coming on, but being so willing to come on. We'll start with pretty much, I guess, probably in high school for you. What was your recruitment like, and ultimately what led you to Mason?
Man, my recruitment process was kind of wild. My dad, for those that don't know, coaches college football, so we were on the move basically my whole high school career. Started off in Maryland, in Annapolis. I was at Archbishop Spalding for a couple of weeks, and then I ended up going to my public school, Broadneck Senior High School in Annapolis, for my freshman year. Made varsity as a freshman, riding high. I'm thinking, I'm set. The road is clear, and we pick up and move right after basketball season. Moved to Lubbock, Texas. So I actually go ninth grade is still junior high. So I went from high school back to junior high. only to finish up in central Pennsylvania my junior and senior year. So my recruitment was just wild, finding AAU teams, really getting out of that new guy role for about 3 or 4 years. George Mason was my only Division I offer, and it came after we won the state championship my senior year. State College area high school right there where Penn State is, in State College. First ever state championship for our school, our district. And yeah, I had no D1 offers up until after we won the state championship. I even played in one more AAU tournament that I was eligible for after my senior year. My senior season was done at George Washington. And that's where, I think it was Bill Courtney saw me and kind of went from there. My decision to come to Mason was pretty quick. When I was set on playing D1. I was around D1 athletics my whole life, and the decision was made for me since it was the only one.
As couple things come to mind. We had another guest one time that was pretty much, I think, that they only had like one D1 offer because of things that similarly crazy things in terms of like they should have probably had multiples, but they didn't kind of happen. And when they were offered, and made the joke that time of like, the coaches are like, you have to come here. And as a player, you're like, I agree.
There wasn't much argument. There wasn't. I remember it was myself and Makan Konate. Makan was on our visit, and the two of us were there, had a good time. And I think they told us that there was only 2 scholarships left. And I think I got home from my visit and called the next day and committed. And I think Makan committed shortly after me. So it was an easy decision for me to make.
But it's interesting, even if that's your only Division I offer, did you have you had to have had some Division I interest, and even, everything that's going on with your, moving it around and everything like that, you have to felt like you took like 1 step forward and 2 steps back. So I feel like you probably had some interest. What was the interest kind of like at that time, even if it didn't kind of formulate into an offer?
Yeah, I definitely had interest. I got caught up in the mix a little bit my junior summer. The AAU process kind of changed. They put in this 100-mile radius rule to where you couldn't play for an AAU team outside of your address in a 100-mile radius. So I was at State College, Pennsylvania. The year before, I had played for a team out of South Jersey who was sponsored. We were going all over the place. So I ended up having to play for a team out of Harrisburg. And it was just myself and Dustin Salisbury. Dustin played at Temple. And we were the 2 kind of main guys on that team. But, my process, I think I had every D2, D3 in the state of Pennsylvania. There's probably like 300 of those. I had those opportunities. My dad was at Penn State, so I had the option of walking on, which was basically what I was going to do. That was basically set. I was going to walk on at Penn State, then hopefully earn a scholarship from there. But, Mason came in. I had a little interest from like Rider, College of Charleston, but no offers came out. Got some letters from like Villanova, North Carolina, only to find out that my AAU coach was telling them that I was going to go to prep school for a year. So I think they were trying to get a head start possibly for the future. But yeah, it was really just Mason, and Coach Courtney came in and was awesome. From the first conversation, I think I was definitely interested, and my decision, like I said, was pretty easy.
And so you were a sophomore on the 2006 Final Four team, right? So
Junior.
You were junior. Okay, so you were a junior on the team. Okay. And I know on that team you played a pretty prominent role. You were basically like super sub, sometimes starter, chief bottle washer. You basically did what was necessary to to set the world on fire, because you were also the guy that went up for the alley-oop whenever they needed a pop from the crowd, which I remember prominently in many games in which we played, because you were the guy that could really play above the rim. Even the post players for Mason weren't above the rim guys. They were great defenders and all that, but you were one of the above the rim guys on the team, and you could do that as well as many other things on the team.
Yeah, I like to think that about 70% of my points in college were all dunks. I think I remember one game, I think we were playing at Towson. I think I caught 5 alley-oops. They stayed in a zone the whole game. I caught 5 lobs. But it was fun. It was a fun role to have. I think it was part of understanding the game, being a coach's kid as well, just trying to find ways to stay on the court and add value to the team. So it was cool to have, Coach L to trust me in those situations from basically my freshman year all the way through.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but the Final Four, that was a while ago. So my memory of what every year everybody has is kind of starting to fade a little bit. As you spent the better part of over a decade in the Philippines, I'm sure that back then your role, as prominent as it was, you're more focused on the pros these days.
Right. For sure. My role has evolved over time. I'm back to the vet, kind of trying to do everything. I'm back to my college role a little bit.
Yeah, you're a veteran now. Like this is the guy. Like you're the one that do you bring young players under your tutelage and everything when they first come onto the team over there?
I try my best, if it's not inviting them over, having dinner. The setup is pretty interesting here. We play, basically you can win like a triple crown kind of aspect. We play 3 tournaments in our season. So the first tournament, you have to have Filipino blood. There's no imports, guys coming over. And, some guys are mixed like myself. They could be from the States, from Europe, from Australia, New Zealand. So I try to do my best to make them feel at home and kind of, help them adjust to life here in the Philippines.
So let's go back to the end of your time at Mason. Was the Philippines, I know that you have Filipino blood. Talk to us a little bit about that and that process. And was that something that was always a consideration for you?
Well, my knowledge of basketball here in the Philippines was limited. My sophomore year of high school, I was in Lubbock, Texas, and that was probably the most entrenched I ever got in terms of the Filipino community. You wouldn't think there'd be a lot of Filipinos in Lubbock, Texas, but there definitely was. So there were nights where we would go, we would have, just open runs and just kind of community building. And I remember vividly, I've told this story before, I remember seeing a pro jersey, which ended up being one of the more popular teams here, the San Miguel Beermen. And their jerseys are pretty kind of loud, and it stood out to me. It caught my attention. And then fast forward to after the Final Four, I actually came here to Manila with Athletes in Action, the sports ministry group. So it was a bunch of Division I athletes. We went around to different colleges here in the Philippines and competed. And when they caught wind that I had Filipino blood, that's really what got the ball rolling. And going into my senior year, my dad kind of took care of it, let me focus on my senior year at Mason. But I kind of knew in the back of my mind that I'd have the opportunity to come here and play. The day we lost to the VCU in the conference championship game, my senior year, that following weekend, I was in LA trying out for the Philippine national team. So it was a series of events, but basically was set when I came here that Final Four year.
So as you're becoming a pro, actually as you're a senior and you're thinking about, what's next, take us through exactly, you alluded to your dad and the role that he has in athletics. What was your process like in terms of figuring out, okay, what do I want to do if I want to keep playing at the next level? And what did that specifically look like? Whether it was at the tournament, and did you find an agent, or did your dad kind of help guide you with that process?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I was probably at a pretty low point, coming off a Final Four junior year, not being the captain and not getting us back to the tournament. I was pretty crushed for a while. I didn't want to touch a ball. I kind of understood that I was a role player all through college. I didn't know if I'd have opportunities to play afterwards. I was able to link with an agent basically off of some of the coaching staff there at Penn State at the time. I share agent with one of the coaches who's now a coach at VMI, but it was one of those things where it was really just up in the air. I wasn't really pressed to play. Had an opportunity. I think I had a tryout for a local scout for the Jazz. That didn't go well. Like I said, I think I was pretty crushed after that loss to VCU, and probably picked up a ball like 3 days before this workout, and I know I look terrible. I'm happy there's no video, like no CCTV of that day, because it was rough. But it was a cool experience to know, after going out to LA and trying out for the national team, and really holding my own, and kind of having that option in the back of my mind, to where I kind of knew the opportunity was going to be here, especially because I was able to play with the national team right away. I didn't kind of do the amateur league or pro and then go nationally. I was able to build my name and play internationally from the jump.
Actually, that probably seems like a good place to go. We talked about it off the pod, and I know we talked about it in other interviews too, but one of the things that even jumps out to me is that when you went over there, it wasn't like, okay, you get to play in the top league right away. Take us through exactly, okay, you decided to go to play in the Philippines, what you had to do to get to now this close to 14-year run. What was the first year like?
The first year was tough. That's the only way to put it. That summer going in, like I said, I was with the national team, so I was with pros, and that's what I thought the process was. I thought, okay, I got to represent the national team. I get to skip this. I thought that was, out of the question for me. But I came back to the States, and I was getting reports back that, okay, look, you're going to have to do a year in the PBL at the time, was the name of the league. And to come out here, I was by myself, living completely by myself. A couple months before, they had let me live with one of the pros who was kind of taking care of me, a guy who was from California. So it was no awkwardness in terms of transition. But my first year was a lot of fast food, a lot of takeout. I didn't have Wi-Fi in my place, so I was in a little studio, and I had to run an Ethernet cord like from the kitchen down like this back wall, and it wouldn't reach to the end of my bed. So I would have to like lay on my stomach. And this was like every day for 10, 11 months before I was able to go back home. But I mean, basketball is basketball. I wasn't too worried about that part. And I think moving around so much as a kid helped me really adjust and really just tackle things head on. So I like to think I was well prepared before I even stepped foot in the Philippines.
Well, that's the off the court stuff, but also the on the court. The process was essentially that you couldn't go, I wouldn't say couldn't go pro right away, but you basically, because you were not full Filipino blood, you had to do what the first year?
Yeah, I mean, I just had to earn my stripes. The league was pretty tough. It was a lot of guys that were sent down from the pro ranks, a lot of older players. And the Filipino style of play is, I wouldn't call it street ball in a sense, but it is fast paced. They love the NBA is everything out here. There's probably bigger NBA fans here than anywhere else outside of the States. And it was eye opening to me. My first couple games, I'm getting undercut. I think my dunks are pretty limited. Like Tony was saying, I was catching a lot of lobs in college, but those first couple of months out here, it was a real test for me. But I was blessed. I was blessed to have great teammates. I was the only, like, say, so Filipino American on the team, but everybody took me in. It was a great opportunity for me to understand the style of play, to prepare myself for the pro level out here.
And so has that rule changed where if you're Phil Am that you don't have to basically do the 1 year in the lower league, or is that still in place?
It's still in place, but it's fluctuated a little bit. It's changed over the years. The number of games, I think at the time you had to play like 30 or 40 games before you were eligible for the draft. But there's, with the pandemic or just different rules over time, FIBA adjustments on different rules. We're not the PBA, the professional league is not a FIBA sanctioned league like other, in Europe and in other parts of Asia and things like that. So we kind of run by our own rules. So things change a lot, especially a lot of times it's just the talent pool that's coming in. Certain adjustments will be made to ensure that certain guys are eligible for the draft.
And so you get your career started over there. This is all the way back in 2008. And so
a long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago. So you move up into the A League. What is that like for you then, playing in the top league there when you first get
Awesome, man. To be able to play, I've probably played 90% of my games in Araneta Coliseum, where the Thrilla in Manila was. You walk through the tunnel, the banners up, the fight posters still up, and
Wow.
And just knowing the history. I love sports altogether. Growing up with a football coach, stateside we play everything. So just knowing the history of the arena. My son's name is Cassius. Like I named him Cassius. So it's
Wow.
it's awesome. My first year, I was lucky enough to get Jai Lewis as our import. So me and Jai were teammates my first year, which was just hilarious. It was good times. Jai was loved. Like people still talk about Jai Lewis out here. And I think that's probably anywhere he goes. He's a special guy. But my first year was a learning experience. We were a young team. Myself and one of my best friends, he was a best man in my wedding, Saul Mercado. He's Filipino and Puerto Rican, but from Sacramento. We were both drafted together. So we were kind of like they called us fire and ice because we're rain or shine. It is what it is. You got to live with it. But it was a good time that first year in the A League.
That sounds like quite a time. It does sound like you've had a good deal of fun since you've been out there.
For sure.
So playing with Jai, you got a former teammate on your team. Was there I guess did you gel with him more so earlier than you did with other guys in the team on the court?
For sure. I mean, like I said, we play at that time. We only played 2 tournaments. They changed the rules to where you play 3 tournaments. So the first one, Jai wasn't with us. We were a team. You had to have Filipino blood, and we ended up losing in the quarterfinals, I believe. So Jai came in for that second tournament, and he was a show, man. He got a little freedom. He was handling the ball. I think the year before he had already done the football thing with the Giants, and then I think he was playing in either like Israel or something before he went to I forget his whole segue to us, but you could tell he was playing with a lot more freedom. We had a young coach at the time as well, so he was getting the ball, leading the break. He was ISOing, clearing people out. So Jai was must-see TV when he was here. So it was fun to have that that Mason connection, and we had him for that year, and we also brought him back the following year as well. So Jai had a good run with rain or shine.
And so you basically you clean up pretty well on the rookie awards. You win rookie of the year, all rookie team. I like this name, the PBA mythical second team. That's good. It seems like you're a magician or something as you're out there.
I think it's up there.
Yeah. That's one of the awards on the top shelf there.
Yeah.
Is that your awards? And you make the all-star team all in your first full season in the league. So you adapt pretty well to the on the court stuff over there, I would say.
Yeah. The first year went well. I think between myself and my teammates Saul, out of the rookies, I think we led in every statistical category that there was.
And that's, of course, for a team that the previous year, since you were basically the number 1 pick in the draft, the previous season as you were working your way up, obviously that team was not very good the previous year. So in 2009, you're a big part of the team. You basically become the star of the team, and you go into the 2010, where you end up being the All-Star Game Most Valuable Player and Defensive Player of the Year. So what was the transition like in the first year and the second year? You basically started gaining more in terms of accolades on the court.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was a testament of just kind of the work that was put in. It's a lot of basketball out here. We don't get a lot of downtime. Really, our off season at the most is a month and a half, and that's been that way for my 14 years out here. Even less when I was with the national team. So it was really just a lot of on court chances for me. I didn't get a chance to really get lazy and kind of take time off. I was really consistent. I've always done a good job of staying in shape, so that wasn't too much of a problem. I like the task of being able to defend. I think that was something that was ingrained in me with Coach L and being at Mason. And a lot of times there's not a lot of, I'm 6'5", and when imports did come out, I was able to let our imports rest. So I was usually the guy guarding, the other team's import and letting our import rest for some times and letting them really handle things on the offensive end. So I guess in a way I was still understanding a role and getting more comfortable with kind of getting back to that high school kind of mentality to where I could kind of control some things a little bit more than I was able to do in college.
And so you mentioned taking time with imports and all that kind of stuff. And I know you're 6'5". What is the general makeup of the team like? Excuse me. Are there a lot of guys that are taller there, or is it generally, guard-like players that are playing out of position? Do you play a lot of positions? I know you didn't really want to describe it as street ball, but that does indicate that it's a little bit more free-flowing and a lot of fast breaks, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. It's like that. Myself, I'm now it's a little bit different just with the evolution of the game in general. You know what I mean? Positionless basketball, but we were probably playing positionless basketball here in the Philippines ever since. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guard play. I play basically 1 through 4. I might even slide over and defend the 5 a little bit when it's the all Filipino conference. But there's definitely some height out here. A couple teams have a 7-footer, a local 7-footer, 6'9", 6'10". So there's definitely some size spread out throughout the league, but for the most part, it's guard dominant. And usually when the imports come out, they are either bigger wings or, we had Chris McCullough was out here a couple years ago that played for the Wizards. Andre Blatch is naturalized. Playing for the Philippine national team and other guys like that. So there's definitely usually big wings to 4 or 5 stretch fours that come out here.
So you played a little bit on the national team with Andre Blatch then?
Yeah. I've been with Dre, since the World Cup in Spain, the first one, 2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we had, I think Delroy James was the one that played in the PBA before, and I think he alluded to there's like two different like, I don't want to say leagues, but essentially that I want to say, and I should have gone back and played the clip, but because I'm going off of memory here, but essentially I think it was like that there was almost like a height sort of rule that there was a league that you could do if it was just like 6'6" or something like that. And so at 6'5", it sounds like you could pretty much be playing year round if you wanted to. And I'm not sure if that's what you have been doing.
Yeah, well, I'm considered a local since I have Filipino blood, so I'm here basically year round. I play in every one of the tournaments. But Delroy is right. We height limit certain conferences. So usually it will go all Filipino, and then there's the bigger imports will come out. So some years they might cap it at 6'9", they might cap it at 6'10". A couple of times it's been unlimited. So like PJ Ramos was out here a couple of years ago. Who else was out here? Hamadou Njai that plays for Senegal's national team. I'm sure he's got a lot of friends and ties to the DC area as well. But and then that second conference is usually when the shorter imports come out. And that's where Jai comes in, because it's interesting because Jai, they actually measure. So you can't just say, oh, I'm 6'5", let me play. Like you come in, you have to go to the office and they measure, and the whole thing. So there's been guys who have flown all the way here to Manila only to measure a quarter of an inch too tall and have to get sent home.
Oh wow.
It's rough. Yeah, it's rough.
I know that when Jai was at Mason, he was listed at 6'7", and
oh no,
I thought that's where you were going. I thought you were about to, because you alluded to it, so I was like,
he played in the Jai definitely played in the 6'6" and under league, and he probably had some room to spare.
I remember when he got measured for the when he got measured for the Giants, he measured at 6'5". I remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Specifically, yeah. So
yeah.
And you know, he when he was at Mason, he was a big body. I mean, Will Thomas was the guy that had the long arms and the length, blocking shots, but Jai was in there taking up space, and he was up there in there being athletic, and that was his thing. You know, that
was his thing.
And he was a pretty good passer from the post too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, great. And that's probably one thing that kind of set him apart out here when he played. I think he caught people off guard, how well he was able to pass out of double teams and kind of make the right play.
You look at him, he's going to be an offensive lineman, and you're like, yeah, offensive lineman on a basketball court, how athletic can he be? And he's
right.
They're running circles around you and running the break. Like it's a different story. There was a reason that NFL teams were interested in him, and it wasn't just his size, it was his athletic ability too.
For sure. Special talent, man. Jai Lewis.
I was going to say that's probably, going back to the Mason scene, and this is going to get very subjective, and it's I really don't even know how to phrase it either, just because I mean, everybody on that roster was so talented, don't get me wrong, but I thought that, like, when we're talking about you and him as professionals, it's like, it is different position categories. I mean, I just remember how versatile and athletic you were in college, and kind of the same thing with Jai. Like, Will is over in EuroLeague, and I mean, his accolades are pretty much unmatched. So, like, I'm not trying to say that he's not athletic. I mean, that'd be absurd, but Jai was just kind of a different sort of natural athlete, I guess I would say. And so, like, the two of you pairing is almost, to me, again, this is very subjective, is almost kind of like two of the more athletic guys from a really good group kind of matched up as professionals. And that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, our practices were definitely fun. Our coach at the time, I think Coach Kaloy was mid-30s, early 30s. So he was the one, he would still crack jokes with us and things like that. So he was egging Jai to get a dunk the whole season. Just, Jai, like, I know you can dunk. Just show me you can dunk. Jai's whole argument's like, no, 2 points is 2 points. Don't worry about it. But sure enough, Jai gets a dunk like towards the end of the season, and he gives, coach the whole little point and keep it moving. But yeah, he's just a special athlete, man. A really great player.
I guess while we're on that subject, let's talk about the atmosphere that you play in there. What is the atmosphere like in the Filipino tournaments that you play in?
To be honest, it depends. There's a team out here. They're kind of like the country's team, kind of like, the All-American boys and the Cowboys or something like that. But if you're playing against the team, it's a Barangay Inebra. It's a gin company, but it's like the team of the people. So if you play Inebra, it's showtime. Our net is packed, close to 15,000. And in terms of Southeast Asia, and I think that's usually our advantage, even playing internationally, when teams come to play us here in the Philippines, they're not used to playing in front of crowds like we have, that are actually really basketball savvy. Like, they understand the game, IQs are high. So the atmosphere is fun. Having my wife and kids, they haven't been able to watch a game in a couple of years now. So they're eager to get out there and cheer us on again. But the atmosphere, like I said, we play 2 games in a day as well. So it's kind of like the high school setup, like the JV varsity kind of scene. So if you get Inebra, and Inebra only plays the second game. So if you're playing Inebra, the place is packed.
Wow.
So with the breakdown, because I know that there aren't as many, like, it's not like every team has their own arena and everything like that. Right. So what's the breakdown like? I mean, is there an allotment for a certain, because both teams are technically, I don't want to say they're technically home, but is there initially at least a breakdown of like, okay, there's a certain amount of tickets allotted for certain fans, or is it just pretty much a free for all?
I'm pretty sure there's an allotment. Contractually, all the players get a certain amount of tickets. That's negotiable depending on the player. I know management gets X amount of tickets as well. And like you said, all the teams are based here in Manila. So 12 teams, we're not going city to city. We're all based right here. Usually on the weekends is when we'll play out of town. So, a couple of teams, 2 teams will travel to another province and play, which is pretty awesome. The Philippines is a beautiful country. Got a chance to, kind of play in places the place where I trace my roots back to. It's been pretty cool experience. But in terms of the home court advantage, it's usually the way the league's broken down. There's 12 teams, but essentially 2 major companies that own more than one team. So one company kind of owns 4, and then another company owns like 3 or 4. So it's kind of, if you're playing the big boys, that's where the bigger crowds are.
So here's an interesting question for you. With, some of the businesses owning some of these teams and everything, is there a structure set up basically where they kind of the teams get to operate independently, or is there kind of like, certain people get funneled to certain teams, or how do they try to keep that separate, or is there really even an effort to do that?
Yeah, it's tough. You look at rosters and teams seem to be pretty stacked, and the rule is right now that teams can't trade directly within sister teams. So if the major company owns 3, they can't just move a piece to this team, and within those 3 there has to be either another team involved, and if there is, I think it has to hold through for like a year before the player can be moved again. So it controls it to an extent. The draft makes it interesting as well. Draft picks being traded and things like that, which is always news out here in terms of how did this team get the number 1 pick again, and things like that. But it's just the nature of the beast. So I've always liked being on the underdog team, and we're one of the smaller groups, but we've been pretty consistent since the day I set foot on the squad.
That's a good jumping off point, because I wanted to talk to you about your 2 championships that you had.
Yeah.
In 2012, you won the Governor's Cup, and in 2016, you won the Commissioners. So talk to us about those years, and talk to us about what the difference is between those.
Yeah. So the first year, the Governor's Cup, we won in 2012. Our import, so all Filipino Governor's Cup and Commissioner's Cup. Governor's Cup, we had Jamel Cornley that played at Penn State. Went up against one of the big dogs, one of the bigger teams out here in the finals. It was just a crazy atmosphere. Their import was Marcus Blakely. Marcus played at Vermont. A really good player. Marcus has made a living out here. He's come back about maybe 5 or 6 times, 5 or 6 seasons that he's come back and represented kind of a series of that organization's team, like one of the 3. He's kind of, whoever needs him. But it was awesome to play in my first finals, 4 years in to finally get to that moment. And for our team, the way our team was structured at that time, I think we only had maybe 1 player who had even played in the finals before. So we were all new to it. It was fun. We were the team that really had no pressure. We got to go out there and kind of be, Mason Nation a little bit. We got to be kryptonite to the other team. So that was cool. It took us 4 years to get back to the final. Well, we were in finals before that. We had lost, but to hold up the trophy again. Our import at the time was Pierre Henderson-Niles that played at Memphis. Mm-hmm. And actually we played against another team whose import was Rob Dozier, who played at Memphis as well. And to be honest, now that I think about it, there's been a lot of Memphis players that have come out here and played from Pierre Henderson-Niles, Rob Dozier, Sean Taggart, Clarence Weatherspoon. There's been some Memphis Tigers out here in the Philippines, but both championships were just hard fought. Being the underdog, I think it's kind of wild that since 2016, our championship, there hasn't been a team that's won a title that wasn't part of one of the main groups. Like since 2016, the main organization out here that owns Ginebra, San Miguel, and a team called Pure Foods. They changed their name a lot, but they've won all the championships since 2016.
Wow. So they're the dominant power there, but you're able to get a couple in
sure.
before.
Yeah, we snuck a couple in.
And outside of your titles, talk to us. You've won 3 straight of the Samboy Lim Sportsmanship Awards. What are the criteria for that, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an honor. Samboy Lim is a legend here in the Philippines. I had the pleasure of meeting him. He played more in the 80s into the 90s, early 90s, but super athletic guy, but one of the nicest people you ever meet. So it's an honor to have that title for that many years and to really represent everything that he means. But for me personally, I don't know what the criteria is. I joke around. I try to get 1 tech a year just to test it, but just to test it out. You win a couple in a row. It's like, oh, let's just try to push this a little bit further. But yeah, I don't know. It's voted by some of the coaches and players and
okay, so it's kind of a
media
award.
and things like that, a peer vote. But yeah, they joke around every year. A lot of my close friends said they're gonna try to get it from me, but nobody's got it from me in my immediate circle.
All right, so this seems like a good point to ask this question, especially where you're talking about an award that might be, essentially based off of, I don't want to say popularity, but let's go that way. And we talked a little bit off the pod about some of the fan pages that are devoted to you. Tell us kind of what it's like being, this is going to get uncomfortable probably for you, for somebody that doesn't really like to brag about themselves, but tell us what it's like to be like Gabe Norwood in the Philippines.
It's interesting. It's something that you never completely get comfortable with. I think, whether it's going out and signing autographs or, during this pandemic, it's been a lot of delivery. So, trying to use a different name on your delivery, just more so probably for security reasons than anything else. But yeah, it's been pretty cool. Just it's basketball out here. There's no other real major sport. When I moved out here, everybody told me it's the 3 Bs. It's basketball, billiards, and boxing. And Manny isn't fighting right now. So he's been actually, Manny played in our league. Manny owned the team and played. I think he scored his first point against our team, which is something else. But no, it's a cool dynamic to have, to be able to raise kids in an atmosphere that loves basketball. They're kind of little celebrities on their own as well. So it's a cool experience.
I was going to say, because we talked a little bit off the pod about it's a Twitter and Facebook account, and Facebook account has like 12,000 followers. It's Gabriel, Mr. President Norwood, is essentially a fan page is what I was referring to.
Right.
And even like on your Instagram, like, it's pretty clear to see that I think that you've got some deals and everything with, I think one of them was like an auto company and things like that. So it's interesting to kind of see the level of celebrity that you are over there.
Yeah, it's definitely something different. Like I said, never completely comfortable. You try to attach yourself to products and companies that kind of fit your role. I don't go too far out of my zone, my comfort zone, and my lane. But yeah, the Mr. President, I got that early in my career here. A lot of likeness, I guess, to Obama at the time. I had the close cut, so it kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, the likeness is kind of going away as you let your hair grow out. So
over time, right? on my end, or who's in office, I think it depends.
Yeah. For sure. And so let's leave your club career behind. Talk to us a little bit about your national team career. How long were you doing that?
Yeah, basically, I was with the national team summer of 2007. That was the first FIBA Asia qualifiers for, I think that was what Olympic? I don't even remember what Olympics was that. Was that in China? I think it was
Beijing
in China. I think it was Beijing. Yeah. So it was the qualifiers for Beijing. We came up short, and it's pretty crazy. We ended up finishing, I think, like 8 or 9-2 in the tournament, but we didn't qualify. We didn't make it out of our group, which was tough. We were in a group. It was us, Iran, who ended up winning it. They had Haddadi that played in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Also, China was in our group, and Jordan was in our group as well. So it was tough, but I was pretty consistent since 2008. I think I only missed a couple of opportunities. Played in 2 World Cups, played in Spain, and played in China in the last World Cup, where we didn't fare as well, didn't perform where we wanted to. But overall, it's an awesome opportunity to represent my family, both the family I've started and the family that sacrificed so much, to give all of us a better life. So it's been a cool experience and something I definitely honor and cherish.
And you talked about your family that you have there. You're basically in your 14th season as a professional basketball player. Any thoughts on what the future is? How long are you going to continue playing, and what are you going to do afterward?
Man, the way things are set up, it's weird. I haven't played a game since November, so the schedule's been wild. Our season, actually just a couple of days ago, was announced that we're going to be allowed to practice again. The pandemic has been handled a little bit different out here, to where we haven't been able to function. But
I know you said that you basically only have about a month off a year. That must be strange for you, having so much time.
Yeah, so this is a whole new world. Just no clue what to do with my time. But got into collecting cards and like the whole plant thing, and so it's been weird, but definitely looking forward to the next chapter. Have some opportunities here. Just recently teamed up with NBA Philippines as a guest analyst, so wrote my first article not too long ago, and there's some
so you're putting your degree to
video
use?
Content. Trying to apply it. Trying to apply it. So that side, but also growing up a coach's kid, just being drawn to the game, trying to network as much as I can, try to stay in Tony Skin's ear. I actually know Kim English, so awesome opportunity for him. Our paths crossed. He was at Tulsa when my dad was coaching at Tulsa. So got to talk to him at that when I went and visited the basketball staff there, Frank Haith and those guys. So it's something that's always on my mind. Coaching has always been there. Don't know what level or what capacity, but I'd love to be around the game.
Thank you for watching this episode of Expat Hoops. If you want to watch more, you can find suggested videos or 2 over here. Also, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell. You can subscribe easily over here. Subscribing helps us and allows us to do more cool stuff to bring to you. Speaking of which, we're also excited to announce some of the new things going on over our Patreon page. So if you become a member over there, you'll get to see some of the cool new extra stuff we're doing to add to our viewer and listener experience as we chronicle the stories of basketball players' experience around the globe.